inflammation is a normal process.
It's literally how the body heals. But in stupid world, they'll give a steroid to decrease the inflammation, an antibiotic to decrease secondary infections, pain relievers, which are going to limit the body's ability to regenerate. So every intervention for inflammatory bowel disease perpetuates the disease. Inflammation is how the body regenerates. It's not a drag and attack in you. So you got two things that are anti-inflammatories. You got vitamin C and virtually every fruit and every plant, and a lot of healthy fats. Then you got Tylenol, Advil, Motrin, Aleve, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories that nobody knows how Tylenol works, but it's kind of like in its own category.
We know the stuff is incorrect. Why do you think they perpetuate those things?
They're trying to conform to one model, and that model is...
I had the honor of sitting with Dr. John Bergman of Huntington Beach, California, to talk about inflammation. And I really wanted to have this conversation. I was excited to have this conversation is because I had personal experience with him, with my family. And this was an amazing conversation that I'm so excited for you to hear. The guy's a genius, and he really understands how the body works. All right, Dr. John, man, thank you so much for being on the Black Health Podcast. I appreciate your time. I know you're a world traveler. You're all over the place. Right now you're in Thailand, right?
I'm everywhere. I'm here a month, 3 times a year, and I cannot thank you enough for the opportunity.
Tell me how you became a chiropractor.
Well, I was a contractor and, built some apartment buildings, houses, had a cabinet shop, and I'm putting an x-ray lab in for a chiropractor. And I wasn't, I was 30 years old and I wasn't really content. Okay. I didn't feel like I found my thing, but I threw my back out while I'm putting up the lead sheets, and, I put a back brace on, and the chiropractor's just going, "What the hell are you doing?" He x-rays, or he tells me about how the body is. The x-ray machine wasn't running yet, and he adjusts me. And this was like mind-blowing. He got this warmth going down both of my legs. I felt good. And we talked for a couple hours about how the body worked. And he told me, said, I'm strong and I'm, can speak well. Well, I should be a chiropractor. And I said, Bull, this is crazy. It takes me $6,000 a month to live. I've got 3 employees. I'm not going to change direction halfway. And, but I was praying to God for a change. And the next week I was hit by a car, breaking both my legs, my sternum fractured, skull fractured, and it was hard to work. So I went back to school and found out that I had a knack for anatomy. It was just like reading building plans. And I ended up tutoring it and teaching it and making it through. But starting midway, and being a contractor, I'm used to solving problems. And what a lot of the doctors told, were teaching, and God bless them, they were teaching with their knowledge base, was wrong. I mean, I'd be tutoring in the cadaver lab, and I'd be opening up a 30-year-old cadaver or an 80-year-old cadaver, and I'd see no arthritis in the 80-year-old and arthritis in the 30-year-old. And this poor bastard teaching me was saying it's from old age. And I'm going, nope, it's not.
Yeah. Wait a minute. So you were seeing arthritis in the young person and not seeing arthritis in some older people.
Yep. Yeah, because it's not from age. It's in even the most common type of arthritis. Arth means joints, itis means inflammation. It means joint inflammation. The most common type is osteoarthritis, which is a non-inflammatory joint inflammation.
Yeah.
So these bastards are making mistakes, 100 years, and they keep perpetuating the same idiocracy instead of looking at how the body works.
And we see that a lot, right? And you're talking about arthritis, but we see that in a lot of different areas of health. Why do you think that is? Why are things that we really understand to be different than they're being taught, or the way that the doctors or medical doctors are prescribing or sharing with their patients? We know the stuff is incorrect. Why do you think they perpetuate those things?
The education system. It's taught on a memorize and regurgitate basis. You're not taught critical thinking in any aspect of school. I mean, there's some schools like Montessori schools, some that use critical based thinking are fantastic. But when you're memorizing and regurgitating, You're not. They're trying to conform all the doctors to one model, and that model is whatever symptom you got, there's a drug. And chiropractors, instead of being doctors of the autonomic nervous system that can literally alter the function of the human body with an adjustment, which is mind blowing. Okay, they want you to refer out to somebody that's a chemical based healthcare that's going to give a chemical that alters the metabolic process of a body to lower blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, whatever, because the doctor
Hmm.
is much smarter than that person's physiology. That is
Right.
mind-blowingly stupid.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy. They say we only understand a small percentage of how the body actually functions. Is that correct?
Guaranteed. I mean,
Yeah.
I know anatomy pretty good. I taught human dissection for 8 years, and it's a wonderment. I mean, it's okay. Okay, like take the vagus nerve, not Vegas, baby. Okay, there's a nerve that comes out of the base of the neck, and it controls every function of the digestive tract. You're talking excretion, absorption, motility. I mean, everything. But that's only 10% of its function. 90% of that vagus nerve is sensory. And so you got to think why. Okay, and then you start to look at the gut has a hell of a lot more important than digestion. It's called
Hmm.
the gut brain. So this is where neurotransmitters are. So there's so much wonderment, like scurvy, a vitamin C deficiency disease, is
Hmm.
corrected by a deficiency of nutrients. And so, it's like, how does that work? The
Yeah.
body is a wonderment, but to look in how the body is self-healing and self-regulating goes completely against the norm of symptom drug, symptom drug.
Right. And I think that's and even as some discoveries I'll call them are being made in the medical community, it seems that they still push towards how do we turn this into a pill, right? How do we turn the solution for this thing right here into a pill? And one of those ways we see that is there's a lot of research around um, um, chronic high blood sugar and how it's affecting, how it affects the body over a long time, right? Like it's groundbreaking stuff. It's groundbreaking stuff, right? That we've never heard of nowadays. But how chronic high blood sugar and what that can do to the brain long term, right? As we talk about dementia and a lot of that stuff right now because we're seeing so much of it. How it visceral fat, how it affects the heart, how it affects the circulatory system. We're hearing a lot about that. It always amazes me that these things that seem really simple to those of us on the wellness side of healthcare are like these revelations. And even when they get this revelation, they're still trying to fit it into that. How do we take this thing that we've now just learned and make it and put it in pill form?
100%, because they're not looking at the cause. It's like, okay, well, we've got the blood that's toxic. Okay, so it's not going to hold oxygen, can't filter out to the joints. So we have to give a drug, metformin or glucophage, to lower the. But what's causing the blood sugar? I mean,
Hmm.
we all had the same grandma. Honey, look at what you eat because what you eat becomes you.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at 95% of all diabetics are type 2, and that's a blood poisoning. So, without addressing the causative factor that these people are consuming toxic, calorie rich, nutrient deficient foods,
Hmm.
something
Hmm.
that we all have a hunter gatherer body. And I tell everyone the solution to diabetes is just to eat like your great great grandparents and have activity like them. And have you ever met them? And people go, no. I said, well, let me tell you, they only ate organic, they only ate seasonal, they ate whole food, they ate varied. If it was preserved, it was sun dried or fermented. It's really simple, and you got to move every joint every day. This is not a
Hmm.
system designed to be sedentary.
Yeah.
And if you look at the movie Simply Raw by Gabriel Cousins,
Yep.
heck, within a week of changing your diet, your blood sugar normalizes. Within a
Hmm.
month, you're no longer diabetic. I mean, it can't be that simple. But
Yeah.
then you talk to these medical religious acolytes.
Yeah.
Well, yes, of course it is diet and lifestyle, but we have to give them the drug while they're doing it. No, you don't.
Right.
I don't give people
Right.
choices. We
Yeah.
do a live blood cell analysis on everyone, and your blood's toxic. Within a week, we'll see it better. Do these changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't.
Just
I
like
don't say
that.
keep.
And I
Yeah,
think that's one of the things, right? They don't believe that in 30 days that you can change your body that significantly, right? In 60 days, you can change your body that significantly. Even if you're really, really sick, in 120 days, you can change your body, in a significant way without drugs.
and that's the fun part because I mean, you've been to one of my clinics, and we do live blood cell analysis. If I see shitty blood on Monday, I'll
Uh-huh.
say, look, do these changes. By Friday, we're going to do another sample, and I've got to show changes. And so that puts a fire in the keister. I mean,
Yeah.
it gets people going, really? I could see differences that quick? Yeah. Within 3 days, your blood pressure is going to start to normal. It's actually quicker than that because it does
Yeah.
people to
Yeah.
teach people to deep breathe before they check it. So all of a sudden, the stress responses of high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes, they're gone within a week
Uh-huh.
because people are finding out that those are not diseases. Okay. I mean, think how mind blowing it is. Yeah. High blood pressure runs on my family. That is so bull. Okay. Does that mean that your family can't regulate themselves? And you got to do a pattern interrupt to their brains because they're in this, they're acolytes of a sick religion that uses poisonous chemicals to alter their physiology.
And a
Okay,
lot of
okay,
fear.
you got, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So I say, look, what was your dog's blood pressure? Did you measure the blood pressure of your cat? And they'll look at you like, well, no, I'm not going to do that because that's stupid. My dog can regulate itself. I just can't.
Right. The dog
No,
is fine.
no.
I'm the weak one. I'm the weak one, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, your body's
Yeah.
responding correctly based on the stimulus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Man, you talked about the blood cell analysis and me visiting your clinic, and that was, I already wanted to get you on, but after a personal experience, I was like, we got to do this now. We got to talk about this right now. I brought my daughter down, who was dealing with some psoriasis and some gut issues, right? Which is what we had been treating for, I'd say, probably 8 or 9 years, with some success, right? And it was a roller coaster. It was up and down. Like, her skin would get better, she'd feel better, then it get worse, and then it get better, and it moderately worse, and then so she hung around maybe 50% better from its worst point for a really long time. And I was like, all right, enough is enough. And you and I were part of an organization together, and every time we all had to do these talks, right? We all had to do the talk and a presentation, and whenever you always came with a jump drive, with a thumb drive, and the thumb drive would have like all of these documents, all of all this research, and all of this stuff, and I just put it in my computer and just be like, this is insane. How much research there actually is into all of this stuff, right? And so, long story short, my daughter came out, and you gave us a protocol. You sat us down and talked to us about her blood and talked to us about inflammation and inflammation in her body and what we needed to do about that inflammation in her body. And literally 6 weeks later, she's probably 70% better. I fully expect for her to be recovered going into the new year. Like, fully expect that, because her path is it's the strongest we've ever seen since she started with this condition. And first, thank you, but second, like, it was amazing. It was amazing to watch.
Yeah, and it's nothing I'm doing. I mean, like a lot of the masters that taught me, they said a chiropractor doesn't heal anything. They just
Mm-hmm.
remove the interference so the body can regenerate itself. And my wife, who I adore, 20 years of ulcerative colitis with antibiotics and steroids. She met me. 30 days later, it was healed, but then she had vitiligo everywhere. So that took about
Mm-hmm.
2 years. But
Mm-hmm.
inflammation is how the body regenerates. It's not a dragon attacking you. So it's a totally different view that the body is self-healing and self-regulating. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
You said
completely different approach.
inflammation is a normal process.
It's literally how the body heals. Like, if you scratch your stuff and you break cells,
Mm-hmm.
instantly histamines are released from those cells, and that initiates this beautiful immune system cascade or cell regenerative cascade. So blood is shut down at first, then it opens up later. Then you have these cells called big eaters, macrophages, that chew up abnormally placed cells, and all of that is an inflammatory response.
Mm-hmm.
So inflammation is a healing process. And
Yeah.
then people say, "Oh no, I've got this systemic inflammation." Yeah, it means you're getting damage to the cells. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of looking at inflammation as a dragon attacking you, look at what the heck is damaging the cells. And
Ah,
then
yes.
it's a totally different view, because people will say, well, take omega-3s or take red yeast rice to lower cholesterol, or take this vitamin C to decrease inflammation. No, inflammation's a healing process.
Mm-hmm.
And when you work within the parameters of how that freaking body regenerates, then the body can regenerate.
Yeah. So it's almost like a natural process gone wild, right? Out of control for for a reason.
Yep, 100%. Because it's
Yeah.
like we're continually regenerating our body, with 3 materials: protein, fats, and carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm.
But we've gotta get the amino acids from the proteins, fatty acids from the fats, and usable sugars from the carbs. So if we can't break those down, then the body, in its wisdom, is gonna store it. And if you're in a stress state, you're gonna store it in the belly, seat, and thigh. So when
Mm-hmm.
people come in with belly, seat, and thigh weight distribution, it's cortisol, and that's a chronic state of stress. They're not getting the raw materials from the food they're getting. And then we'll look at the structural component, because every human being, and Doc, I got to tell you, okay, when you say that we're part of the same organization, your presentations were is still legendary. I miss you, man. I want to get you
Thank
back.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and when you look at this, when doctors of the chiropractic, we're doctors of the automatic nervous system, and
Mm-hmm.
every human being can be in stress or regeneration. When you're in stress, and that's the sympathetic, your body is running away from a tiger. So we have to look at the physical, chemical, and emotional stressors that are keeping us in that stress response. We address those underlying stressors, then the body can function correctly and regenerate healthy tissue. And
So it's
nobody
identifying those. It's identifying those stressors.
identifying and quantifying them.
Uh-huh.
That's why I like looking at pre and post x-rays. I mean, you know our protocols. We're doing 3 to 4 adjustments a day. Within 2 weeks, we're getting 30 adjustments. We get second x-rays to document that we're actually fixing the problem. Pre and
Right.
post nerve scans, continuous live blood cell analysis to see that the
Mm-hmm.
blood is getting healthy, or if it's not. We change sleep patterns in everyone. We empower people to change their emotional component by neurolinguistic programming or
Mm-hmm.
visualization.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all of that. You're addressing the 3 stressors: physical, chemical, emotional. Then the
Yeah.
body is going to get in that regenerative state. Then inflammation is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this stuff is like mind blowing to the standard doctor who's taught low level thinking.
Yes.
It's like I say it's like dirty stream syndrome. Yeah, your stream's dirty. Let's put a filter in it. And I'm saying, no, somebody's dumping shit in the stream about up there. You know,
That's a perfect way to put it. That is the perfect way to put it because that's what it is, right? And it's figuring out for to me it seems like it's figuring out for the individuals what that gunk is that's being dumped into the stream.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
And and that's the critical thinking that separates the standard from people that allow the body to regenerate. I
Yeah.
mean, even Hippocrates was running into the same crap in his time. He said, "Look, guys, first don't hurt the person, okay,
Right.
and then look at your interventions."
Right. Right. Right.
He also
First,
said
right.
when confronted with disease, first look to the spine. He also said death begins in the colon. So if the
Hmm.
doctors follow that Hippocratic thought process,
Yeah.
they'd all be chiropractors.
And going through the process, one of the things that strikes me is that when we're talking about medicine, the medical community versus where we are in our ideas about health, it seems like it really comes down to monetization, right? Like how you're able to create a factory, right? Um, and it's much more difficult because you just said you do pre and post X-rays. You're doing blood work pre and post throughout the process. You're adjusting them 3 times a day, 30 adjustments in a really short amount of time. You're having them control their sleep and some diet stuff and some nutrition and some, and neurolinguistic things. This whole kind of you put all this stuff together really to help to kind of retrain, the brain and retrain the body. That's a lot, right? That's a lot.
Big time.
And when you put all that together, you're like, well, but wait a second. Wait a second. We can't make an efficient machine out of this. And I feel like that's a lot of we can't make an assembly line. We can't make an assembly line out of that, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. AI could replace every medical doctor because, type in your symptoms here, here's your medication. And that's foolishness. I mean, because when you look at chiropractors, the traditional don't diagnose. I mean, one of my masters that taught me said die means two, agnose means not to know. So a diagnosis means two people were agreeing not to know. I mean, it's like you can't take 10 people with fibromyalgia, 10 people with type 2 diabetes, 10 people, whatever. Do they all have the same stressors? Do they all have the same history? No, but they all get the same medication.
Right.
So that cookie cutter approach is foolishness.
Yeah.
You're just putting filters in that dirty stream instead of, having the body regenerate.
Yeah.
And then having a measurable objective analysis to show that whatever the heck you're doing is working. This is, you wouldn't take your car to a mechanic that says, I really don't know what the cause is, but we can replace a few parts. You'd find a different mechanic.
Right.
I'm going to give you a steroid for a skin condition that's going to increase the risk of cancer, but decrease the redness without, I mean, that's insanity.
It'll stop itching, but long term, it's going to be a problem.
But long term, everything's going to be a problem.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I was just going to ask, when we're talking about inflammation and inflammation being out of control because of these stressors, what does that look like? Because you mentioned fibromyalgia, we mentioned lupus. What does this process, this mechanism being kind of broken, what does that look like? How can we relate that to some of the things that people suffer from?
Totally cool. Okay, so when you look at it, inflammation is called an oxidative metabolic process. It's just a break and build of cells. The problem with that process is it can create free radicals, which can damage healthy cells. So you got two things that are anti-inflammatories. You got vitamin C in virtually every fruit and every plant. And a lot of healthy fats have antioxidant or anti-inflammatory properties. Then you got Tylenol, Advil, Motrin, Aleve, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories that nobody knows how Tylenol works, but it's kind of like in its own category. Okay, and those things are also anti-inflammatories. Well, vitamin C and omega-3s deactivate those free radicals and allow inflammation to work to regenerate the tissue. The other chemical crap, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, destroy that process. So this is why all the Advil, Motrin, Aleve, all the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, and forget about, steroids and everything else that they'll prescribe, they destroy the building blocks of cartilage, proteoglycan production. They literally destroy joints because it stops that healing process, which is inflammation. It's mind-blowingly stupid.
Yeah.
But that's why the people's in that chemical-based healthcare system, which has been going on, and it's a 100-year-long failure, that they don't see joint regeneration. I had this orthopedic surgeon, reverse curve in his neck, his hands going numb. And I told him, I says, yeah, doc, luckily on the stress x-rays, we found out we can regenerate the disc. And he looked at regenerate the disc. And I said, yeah, discs are alive. And if you get a doctor that constantly prescribes a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory for joint pain, and they monitor with x-rays, the destruction of those joints, they're going
Mm-hmm.
to call it a degenerative disc disease and be creating the systemic or treating the systemic inflammation with a chemical, which causes destruction of the body's ability to regenerate that tissue. It's
Yeah.
it's a cycle
So
of
they're treating
stupid.
the condition. They're treating the condition, making it worse at the same time.
100%. But I mean, that's every drug causes the symptom it's designed to treat. Every drug. And when people say, no, that's not true. Okay, good. What's the side effect of antidepressants? Suicide, suicidal thought. What's the side effect of pain medications? Joint destruction. What's the side effect of muscle relaxants? Well, it's the central nervous system poison that attacks the base of the brain. So you're looking at muscle alterations.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
The drugs they give for reflux to prevent esophageal cancers actually
Yeah.
increase esophageal cancers. The proton pump inhibitors. It's
Man,
foolishness.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's an
500
out of
years from now,
control system.
brother, they're going to look back at this and say, God, they were stupid.
But here's the funny thing is that like the look at at 200 years ago and they say God they were stupid, but repeat the exact same mistakes. Repeat the
100%.
exact same issues and the exact same mistakes in the way you apply
Yeah.
these principles to health. It
What's
doesn't make
what's the
sense to me.
definition of insanity? Oh, doing the
Exactly.
same thing, expecting a different outcome. Okay,
Exactly.
just checking. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
crazy.
I wanted to drill down when we're talking about inflammation. Let me go back to some conditions, some specific conditions that get diagnosed in someone who has this chronic inflammation.
Oh, look at inflammatory bowel disease. That's the best
Uh
one.
huh.
I just did a
Uh-huh.
talk yesterday on it. Okay,
Yeah.
inflammation is how the body regenerates, so it means that it's not inflammation. There has to be tissue damage first.
Yeah.
When you look at because this is all being more of a detective, and
Uh-huh.
a real doctor is going to be a detective. So if you just say, yeah, inflammatory bowel disease, will say, hell, man, inflammation can't occur unless there's tissue damage.
Yeah.
So what caused damage to that intestinal tract? Well,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to look at the gut flora. So if anything damages the ecosystem that's inside of our intestinal tract, let's say you have anything that can damage the bacteria, then mold, funguses, and yeast are going to, and the yeast got these little tendrils that can bore holes in the intestinal tract, and that is going to damage the cells, creating inflammation.
Yeah.
So then the real detective is going to look at, well, what damaged the gut flora? What changed that Serengeti plain, that ecosystem that it was functioning in harmony? Well,
Mm-hmm.
glyphosates, processed foods, packaged foods are going to allow mold. And then you get a doctor that says, well, you have small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, SIBO. You need an antibiotic. Really? So what caused that? Well, low stomach acid. Bacteria that should have been attenuated with the stomach acid, there was less stomach acid. So is this guy drinking water during meals? Are they in a chronic state of stress? What caused that bacteria to survive the stomach acid? So
Yeah.
real doctors in just taking inflammatory bowel disease are going to look at what caused that damage. And then they're going to look at the physical, chemical, and emotional stressors that led to the decreased blood supply to the gut, because inflammation is a healing process. So inflammatory bowel disease means that body's doing everything it can to regenerate that tissue.
Mm.
But in stupid world, they'll give a steroid to decrease the inflammation, an antibiotic to decrease secondary infections, pain relievers, which are going to limit the body's ability to regenerate. So every intervention for inflammatory bowel disease perpetuates the disease. Then they remove the offending organ. Oh, you know, we're only going to remove a small piece of your intestinal tract.
Right. 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 The part that's in the worst shape, we're just gonna take that part out, right? And that
Yeah,
should that should solve the problem.
oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no critical thinking. And then what causes this, doctor? Well, it runs in your family or genetic or this or
Mhm.
that, and that's
Yeah.
insane. The
Yeah.
the list of chronic diseases that have increased over the last 100 years is exponential. In the last 50 years,
Skyrocketed and skyrocketed.
skyrocketed, and
Yeah.
genes haven't changed in thousands of years.
I just saw a graph that talked about some of the laws in our country changing around processed foods in the 1970s, and the trajectory of those inflammatory conditions that you talk about. It was wavering, and it literally did this.
Yep.
Like it went the graph went like that. It was crazy, crazy, and it just showed the complete parallel between that and the foods that were now on our shelves in the mid '70s. It was wild.
And it's true. I mean, you look at the homogenization of milk.
Hmm.
Why? Because cream floats to the top. And if you send that milk and blast it in a stainless steel sheet, okay, it breaks shards of the fat, so it diffuses the fat throughout the milk. But those fat shards actually damage the tissue. So you go from healthy, organic, raw milk, okay, to something that can create damage to the tissue. And then they call it an
Drinking glass.
inflammatory product.
Now you're drinking glass.
Yeah, yeah, you're drinking glass, shards of fat. Yeah. Yeah. No, your diet's got to be like our great-great-grandparents.
Yeah. One of the things you said a couple of times, right, is the chemical, the physical, and emotional stresses. What do those look like? So if we're starting with like the chemical stresses, what we just talked about processed foods, but what are some of those chemical stresses that you see that can cause the systems to go out of whack?
Yeah, poor sleep is a chemical stressor. And so how many people watch TV before bed or watch, this before bed? Well, that interrupts melatonin because this stuff and melatonin doesn't make you sleepy, but it extends these periods called rapid eye movement. And sleep is the most important part of your day. This is when your
Hmm.
body literally shuts down and goes to regeneration phase. All that energy, sleep is super active for regeneration. So
Yeah.
poor sleep is a chemical stressor. So we teach people
Uh-huh.
how to sleep.
Hmm.
Then you're looking at diet. Okay, you got a calorie rich, nutrient deficient diet. And that's something that the 10,000 generations that preceded you have never experienced. And
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 that's the
so
processed foods that we're talking about, right? Calorie rich and nutrient deficient.
yep, this is stuff your body's looking at, like cottonseed oil, canola oil. All of that stuff was industrial products to oil
Hmm.
machinery. It was kind of cool because if you add that toxic stuff to plants or to food products, bacteria won't eat it, so it extends the shelf life.
Right. Right.
The human being can't process it, so it
Right.
makes them poisonous and deficient. So that, and then
Yeah.
medications, and the advice on medications, because in I was going to say this country, but in Bangkok, and my clinic in Mexico, in Huntington Beach, that's in America, we can't tell people to stop drugs, but what we can do is show them the effect of what the medication does. And if you're
Hmm.
taking more than one drug, nobody knows what those two mix together. So if you're taking the antacid with the muscle relaxant, with the beta blocker, with the this, with the that, nobody knows. So I say, look, man, just separate the drugs, by half hour to an hour. And then people will say, gee, doc, there's not enough hours in the day. Oh, well, do the best you can.
That's not a problem. That's not a
That's
problem.
yeah, yeah. But no, they're following the doctor's orders. We're taught to
Right.
follow the authority figures.
Right.
Okay, I didn't learn that part. So
Right. Right.
so the medication, toxic food, and poor sleep, that's the chemical
Hmm.
stressors. And
Hmm.
you can see it so crystal clear in the live blood cell analysis.
Yeah.
If you've never seen a blood cell analysis, you see beautiful, healthy red blood cells, or then you see this crap that's stacked that look like worms. I
Yeah.
mean, the lay people will say, well, shit, that looks normal and that doesn't.
Right.
Yeah, one's
Right.
stressed, one's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
What about
and
those physical stresses?
And that's something that we identify on a static and stress x-rays. So we're going to see
Mm-hmm.
if there's, some kind of past trauma. And then we take a stress x-ray or bending films to see if we can fix it. And then
Mm-hmm.
we do 3 different nerve scans. So we're doing a thermography, which identifies physical and chemical stressors. And then we do a heart rate variability, rolling thermoscan, surface electromyography, all to measure the physical stressors.
Yeah.
And then it
Yeah.
it takes 3 to 5 years to see a bone change on X-ray. So if
Mm-hmm.
we see, like, grade 2 arthritis, we know that's been going for 5 to 10 years minimum.
Yeah.
It could have been a
Yeah.
lot longer, but wouldn't be less. And so I
Mm-hmm.
could say, "Look, man, you've had a physical stressor here for 15, 20 years." And, "Really? I haven't noticed it. I can't sleep, and I have 1 poop every other day, and, I my doctor says I'm pre-diabetic and pre-hypertensive." Yeah, and I said, "You're also pre-dead, okay, so don't worry about it."
Yeah.
You know? I love
And
that
those physical.
pre-diabetic.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it's coming. There's nothing you can do about it, right? We're
Yeah,
just giving
yeah.
you a heads up. We're giving you a heads up that in 18 months you'll be back here for new pills. And so what are some things that happen to cause those physical stresses? So I know there's just trauma, right? Like if you just get hit by a car.
We all have a hunter-gatherer body. We're designed to bend, turn, twist, and move. Like
Hmm.
when grandma said, "You only brush the teeth you wanna keep,"
Yeah.
only move the joints you wanna keep. So right now, what we're doing, we're increasing the pressure on the L5-S1 disc 5 times
Hmm.
normal,
Right in the
okay,
lower
because 'cause we're
back.
not designed to sit. And so
Yeah.
we're literally flattening out the disc, reversing it. Now that disc supplies the whole pelvic floor. So you're looking at bowel dysfunction, prostate issues, and it's right on top of the sacrum, which houses half of the body's
Hmm.
ability to regenerate. So just sitting
Yeah.
screws up and is causing a physical stressor. And
So
if you were,
sitting 8 hours a day in front of a computer.
forget about it. Yeah, your body's not designed to do that. That's why we give exercises to turn sitting into therapy. We give this little white foam piece and it's going to be placed back there for 20 minutes, take it out for 10,
Hmm.
so we can keep the disc hydrated. But then,
Yeah.
on that same disc, under the golf swing, you increase the pressure 8 times normal. So if you're golfing for, 2 hours and you say your back's sore, yeah, no kidding. But if you're sitting for 2, 3, 4 hours and you're saying your back's sore, why? Well, I don't know. I'm going to get an Advil and I'm going to be fine.
Mhm,
You
mhm,
know, we're not
mhm.
designed, and that's the most basic physical stressor. But then you look at traumas like 90% of the nerves coming off the spine. There's no pain fibers. So in stupid
Yeah.
world, you ask and they're even teaching chiropractors in the
Mhm,
physical exam. Where do you hurt? Describe the LOPQRST, the location of your
mhm,
pain, the
mhm,
onset, the quality. Okay.
mhm.
And I tell all my patients, I said, that's foolishness because that's only 10% of your awareness.
Yeah.
90% of the nerves coming off the spine, there's no pain fibers. So you need to take an objective analysis, and that's static and stress digital x-rays. And
Mhm.
now they're even trying to tell chiropractors, well, if you're not getting success in the symptoms after God knows what, 8, 10 adjustments, then to get an
Right.
x-ray.
Right. Right.
That's insanity.
It's crazy.
Okay. Yeah, there's no basis in any type of science or
Mhm.
to get rid of an objective analysis to find out what the
Yeah.
heck is going on with the person. Uh,
It's
uh,
so wild.
and the body responds the same to physical, chemical, and emotional stress. You got this automatic nervous system, and every human being can be in stress or regeneration. We need that balanced. And every person with high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, they're in a stress state. And
And
that's not a
emotionally
good
too, right? Emotionally as well.
100%. And that's the weird thing because, like, if you and me are watching a scary movie, and I don't like scary movies. Okay, my blood is going to become thick. My cortisol is going to be elevated. Blood supply to my gut's going to be shut down, and that's only based on my perception of what's happening. Okay, I'm watching a movie. I'm sitting in a comfortable chair. Okay, but based on that perception of the environment, my heart rate's going to be elevated. Cholesterol is going to be elevated because I'm going into battle. And so you have to address the emotional component. And what one of the greatest examples ever, I was doing sections of the brain for a test, and I was just slicing the coronal sections of a brain. And this chiropractic neurologist walks by 10 feet away, and of that section of brain, he said, "Oh, that person had a lower left limb dysfunction." And I'm looking at the brain. Now I know what he was looking at, but at the time,
Yeah.
how could it? And he couldn't see that I took it out of a cadaver that had a healed lower left limb amputation. But
Wow.
what that bore in my brain was that constant sensory stimulation to that brain can literally change the structure of the brain that you can actually see it.
Man.
So the more stimulus to that brain, the more the brain gets hardwired.
Yeah.
And so if you're constant in a state of victimization, of pain, of anxiety, of stress, every time you move, you hurt, whatever the constant stimulus, your brain becomes hardwired on that
Mhm.
stimulus.
Mhm.
And you have to change that. And
Yeah.
like most people with a chronic illness, I'll say, if I ask you to tell me 5 things that are pissing you off, physically or emotionally, or what this condition is irritating you, with enthusiasm,
Yeah.
they can say, it runs in my family. It's here all the time. Oh, I can't do anything about it. I mean, but if I say, tell me the moments of absolute joy when your soul smiled, when you felt content with the world. You're gonna see this deer in the headlight look
Mhm.
like, "Oh my God,
Mhm.
I can't recall that."
Yeah.
So you have to, because the brain can perceive anything. And just like what I tell my patients is, people that can master their emotional state. When you
Mhm.
master your emotions, you can change your physiology. Those guys that om, they can meditate and they could raise or lower their blood pressure.
Yep.
You master your emotions, you change your physiology. And that's why we teach two techniques to people. One is neurolinguistic programming, and that involves body posture. Well, why body posture? Well, body posture is changing the input to this small brain in the back called the cerebellum, and that controls the frontal lobe. And the frontal lobe, like I've got some patients this morning with anxiety, stress, depression, attention deficit disorder, and they're this morning, but also schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. All of these are features of the frontal lobe.
Mhm.
And this is literally programmed by the small brain on the back. So, body posture. Then we teach breathing. Why? Because that little 2-pound brain burns 90% of the body's oxygen. And it does it by creating its own food called cerebral spinal fluid. And if there's an alteration in the structure, that fluid can't drain from the brain. So body posture, breathing, then volume and intonation. And they're literally going to be saying, I am before a group of words. And
Mhm.
the frontal lobe doesn't have an emotional component. It learns just through repetition. Like if you're playing tennis, you don't
Yeah.
got to feel the ball. You just got to hit that
Right.
sucker back
Right.
and forth, and you're going to get
Right.
better at it.
Right.
Okay. So your brain starts to reprogram it, and that's going to be key. Then we teach diaphragmatic breathing and visualization. We're 10 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing every day, but visualize a moment of joy. And your brain is going to bounce around a whole bunch of different, aspects. Like when I
Mhm.
first did this, and it's a self-guided meditation, I thought about a birthday party when I was 5 years old, and my mom dressed up as a hobo. It was cool. Then I thought about my wife because I really dig her, and that lasted about a minute. Then I thought about water skiing when I was a teenager. Then I thought about when my dad died when I was 14, how my sister's boyfriend and all these carpenters from New York, they taught me
Mhm.
hard work and camaraderie and honor, and so you get these different moments, and what that felt like, what that was like, what did it smell like, and those feelings are going to start to change the firing of the brain.
Hmm.
So literally, your brain, physical, chemical, and emotional, we're on a three-legged stool. If
Mhm.
you're not addressing all three, the body cannot regenerate. It's not
That's it.
possible.
That's it. I think that's the crux of it. Like that's the core of all of this, right? If you're not addressing all three, then the body can't be healthy.
It
is
can't.
is
It's not
is really
possible.
what it seems like. Yeah, or you can't recover, right? Even more importantly, you can't recover from the conditions that we're suffering from.
And that's the hardest thing to communicate is, you know, you don't have a stroke or MS or leukemia or bowel disorders or anything. Your body is responding correctly based on the stimulus. And that
It's
just
hard for people
blows
to
their mind
accept. It's
because
hard for people
because
to
I've
accept.
I've owned this disease. You know, I have 3 relatives that have this disease. It's I'm a victim. It's not from
Hmm.
my fault.
Right,
Okay? I eat McDonald's just like my neighbor, you know?
right, right.
It's literally your body is responding correctly based on the input. And
Hmm.
when we change the physical, chemical, and emotional stimulus to that brain, then your body can regenerate healthy tissue.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Doc. Let me ask you this. What do you think it would take in order for there to be some sort of wave or some wholesale change in the way people think about their health?
Brilliant. I mean, 100% education, doing what you're doing right now. You're putting dangerous information out, okay, that can alter healthcare as we know it.
Yeah.
But when people take personal responsibility for their actions and not have this victim mentality that a disease is actually attacking them,
Hmm.
okay, then they can turn that around. But it's literally, can you imagine teaching kids that 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 they're responsible for their emotional health? Sticks and stones may hurt me, but words will never
Yeah.
hurt me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm responsible for my own emotional state.
Hmm.
Not, oh, this is a safe space. No. We have to go back to personal responsibility for our actions. But if we had an
Hmm.
awareness that our body is self-healing and self-regulating, there would not be this victim. Your body's responding correctly based on the stimulus. We're going to look at that stimulus. Inflammation is attacking me.
Hmm.
No, it's not. It's what there had been tissue damage. Let's find that damaged tissue.
Hmm. Hmm.
Boy, when we change that,
Oh,
oh, I,
yeah.
I mean,
That's an entire shift.
to teach kids in school that sleep is the most important part of your day,
Yeah.
that your body is magical. You could take a banana and an orange and a bell pepper, and
Yeah.
you're going to make eye tissue and kidney tissue out of it by this afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, when people look in the mirror and they see a wonderment that their
Right.
body is a divine creation, that every human being has this divine energy, that
Huh?
their body is responding correctly.
Yeah.
Bam!
That's
Might be
it.
another few hundred years from now, but
Right.
we'll get there.
We're inching that way, right? We're inching in that direction. I believe, with the help of, like you said, 100+ years of doing things that don't work, right, and proving it over and over again, and we see this, we do, because I feel the wave of folks that are like, what I've been doing isn't working. It's just not working. And I have to find another way. And I heard about this other way from this other person who was so excited about this other way. And so I'm hearing so much more of that these days than I was 20 years ago when I got into this.
Yeah, luckily,
Yeah.
the pandemic, I mean, the one virus to rule them all,
Yes.
people have lost their faith in the medical system,
Yeah.
a lot of them. I
Yep.
have 3 sisters, and one of them is still a COVIDite.
Huh?
COVIDite? COVIDite?
Is it?
Yeah, she's in that religion.
Right.
So she's still gonna mask and socially distance and,
Still
wear
doing
the
it.
mask. Oh, it's insanity.
Oh
Yeah.
man, that's
Yeah,
tough. That's tough.
but it is a belief system, but you
Hmm.
change, and the only way you change belief system is through information,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then that new data can change the religion. Like,
Hmm.
we're gonna sacrifice a virgin to make sure the voyage is good,
Right.
and
Right.
and we do that, and the voyage is failure, so we're gonna
Right.
lose the faith in that belief system.
Hmm. Hmm.
We're gonna inject 72 doses of 17 different vaccines in a child, and we find out that our children are sick. We're going to lose the faith in that religion.
Yes. Yes. And I feel like that's what's beginning to happen, and that's why we're here. That's why we're here. Dr. John, man, I thank you so much for being here. I thank you so much for sharing. It's been a pleasure as always. It's been an honor. And again, I want to thank you for how you've helped, my family, And what you're doing for people in Thailand, what you're doing for people in Huntington Beach, what you're doing for people in Tijuana, man, it's huge. It's huge. Thank you so much.
Yeah, buddy, thank you for this opportunity. I mean,
Yeah.
it's shows like yours that are literally changing the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I miss you, man. I miss hanging out with you.